What's up everyone, it's your Thinking Cap Benji here, back with another FPL Meta Moves video. In this one, I'll be touching on two forwards who are about to enter the FPL meta, and I'll also be discussing the most effective FPL strategies as we approach the busiest part of the season. Thinking Cap activated. The first thing we're going to talk about today are FPL Forwards. I know a lot of people will be looking to move off of a DCL or a Liam Delap this week, and the two best options for you to move up to would be Isak or Nicholas Jackson. Last week on Meta Moves, I went in depth on a bunch of the cheaper forwards, so if you're looking to move down to a cheaper striker, check out that video after you finish this one. And before we begin the analysis, let's touch on Haaland. Now, I sold Haaland last week, but I also said last week that the next best exit point for selling him is after the Spurs game. So you'd sell him for game week 13 when he plays Liverpool away. I still stand by that, and if I had Haaland this week, I would hold him now for Brighton and Spurs. But if you did want to sell him now, or if you have the money to move up to one of Isak or Jackson in your second forward spot, I think that could be a very, very smart move from a fixtures perspective. And I actually think it's a pretty close call, but I do think Jackson has the better long-term fixtures. He's got Arsenal at home this weekend, but in 12, it's Leicester away, then Villa, Southampton, Spurs, Brentford, Everton, Fulham, and then in game week 19, it's Ipswich away from home. So Nico's long-term fixtures are really, really great, but Isak's aren't bad either. He's got West Ham in 12, then Palace, Liverpool, Brentford, and then in game week 16 and 17, it's two promoted teams back to back. This is one of the reasons why I think both are really great options. Jackson is more of a long-term pick, as you can keep him beyond game week 19, whereas Isak's hold potential is a little shorter. But overall, both of them have really good fixtures coming up. Now, my favorite option out of both is definitely Isak. It's in my mind, it's definitely Isak, and it's because of two main reasons. The first reason is because Newcastle aren't in Europe for the weeks where Isak's fixtures are good, and in those weeks, the other expensive strikers will see reduced minutes and have weaker form. The second reason is because Jackson is on 4 yellow cards, one more, and he will miss a Premier League match. And there's a chance that could be one of the promoted team fixtures that he misses. So there's additional risk with moving towards Jackson. Isak is also on pens, which I'd estimate is around 2 extra goals across the next 8 to 10 weeks. So yes, Isak is my favorite option out of the two. But if I did own Jackson, I wouldn't sell him for Isak. I'd wait on that yellow card to come and then reassess, because the fixtures coming up are just too good for you to sell Jackson now. He has the potential to be the best striker in that 7 to 8 million price bracket. And if we look at the underlying numbers, Jackson is actually outperforming Isak. Nico's non-penalty XGI and shots on target per 90, both totals are superior to what Isak has put up this season. Take a look at both players' post-shot XG, which is a stat that measures finishing quality actually, and Jackson's score is 0.18 higher than Isak, and it also ranks within the top 5 forwards in FPL right now. So Nico's been shooting really well, he's been getting more chances than Isak, and he's also a little bit cheaper too. Overall, I like Jackson as an option. I'd hold him if I had him, but if I could move to either one, like if I didn't have Jackson or I didn't have Isak, it would be obvious for me to move to Isak. I would pay the extra. His minutes will be much stronger than Nico's, and in the busiest part of the season, I think paying 0.6 million more for pens, better minutes, and less fixture congestion is worth it. We're discussing FPL strategy next. In front of you is Ben Crellin's in-depth fixture ticker. This shows you the Premier League games, UCL games, and it also shows you all the cup matches. Now, I want you to focus on game week 11 up to around game week 20. So after this weekend, we have an international break, but this is actually the final international break of the year. This means that teams are playing every 7 days for months, and it also means that the teams in Europe and the teams that are still in cup competitions will be playing every 3 days for a while. We'll see more players rotated, more surprise benchings, and most importantly, we're going to see more injuries. When we look at Chelsea's fixture schedule, it's packed with midweek games, so it's understandable why Maresca's been rotating so much. Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United, and Liverpool have the most midweek fixtures, with Man City and Villa having just one less game because they were knocked out of the EFL Cup last week. The reason why Cole Palmer is so important is because he's not registered for Conference League this year, which makes him overpowered. He's fully OP, he's fully meta. Palmer will be one of the only premiums, if not the only premium, receiving a full 7 days rest in the next 10 game weeks. Compare that to a Haaland, a Salah, or a Watkins, who will be flying to play Champions League football, and suddenly you understand how much of an edge Palmer has in captaincy. He'll be able to maintain his explosive form for much longer, and it lowers the potential of niggling injuries, which can regress his point ceiling. So that's the first takeaway. Palmer is essential during this part of the season, and if you do not own him now, please get him soon. The second thing that you need to take away from this is around FPL psychology. We know that there's games every week, and that means managers are less likely to remember to do their teams. To counteract this, you're going to need to have a rough plan for your team over the next 8 weeks, but the key is to not overplan. Don't lock yourself into transfers 5 weeks in advance. Make sure you process new information, stats, and the results when possible, and make sure you leave space for surprises, because this is the time of the season where, unexpected rotation, unexpected injuries, they happen. You must stay flexible and open, because there's times where you're going to be hit by 2 or 3 injuries and you're down some transfer rabbit hole, and suddenly you're taking a -8 to fix a bunch of fires. So my tip is, don't lock yourself into future plans, stay flexible, and do not over plan with your squad. Do not over tinker, do not knee jerk. All of these things will hamper your performance in FPL this season, especially when we're heading into this period where there's games every week. You should also target players with strong expected minutes and target teams with good fixtures who aren't in Europe. There's 2 key standouts to me, and those 2 teams are Newcastle and Brighton. There's top quality in both squads, and I think those 2 teams can capitalize on less congested fixture schedules. In terms of free transfers, I think between game weeks 13 and 15, it would be a good plan just to prepare to roll at least once, so you can prepare for the fixture swing in 18 the best you can. The more you roll, the more powerful you become in the future. Do keep that in mind. And the final thing I'd like to say is to be cautious of how much you invest in teams who will be in the busiest fixture congestion of the season. So that would be Arsenal, Manchester United, Spurs assets as well. I do think Liverpool assets are okay for now. Arne Slot excels at rotation, and they've got a pretty fresh squad at the moment, but a couple injuries to big players and things can change very quickly. As always, we finish the video off with a sleeper selection. That's 1 meta differential every week with crazy upside, under 10% own, and this video was made with the help of differential legend FPL Skyline. I left his Twitter link in the video description, so go check that out, along with all of my other socials. And our game week 11 sleeper pick is Lewis Hall from Newcastle. He's dirt cheap at 4.3 million. His current ownership sits at just 2.4%, so he's a major differential option. I actually had Hall in game week 1. I had it in my game week 1 team, but I did sell him on wildcard 6 due to the fixtures. But I have a really big confidence in this kid. Hall, he joined Newcastle on loan from Chelsea last season, and during the summer they made the move permanent. He started 7 games this season, and he's averaging 86 minutes per start, which is really solid. He's missed some games, and that was because Fabian Schär got sent off in game week 1 and got suspended for 3 matches, so Eddie Howe dropped Hall out of the lineup for further defensive solidarity, and that it's a little risk in the future, but I think Hall is very nailed now. He's played 5 90 minutes in a row, and if we look at his underlying numbers, they're actually really good. Out of all defenders, he sits 4th for chances created per 90. He's also sitting top 6 for baseline bonus out of all defenders, which tells us he's very attacking, and if he picks up a return, either a clean sheet or a GA, he's likely to pick up some bonus points along the way. Another reason why Hall is such a good pick is because you're getting access into that Newcastle defense for just 4.3 million. That's so cheap. Newcastle have conceded the 3rd least amount of goals this season, and they have the 3rd most clean sheets as well. I think it's safe to say that they are a top 6 defense that should also improve on just being a top 6 defense further when the fixtures get better and when they get the likes of Botman back as well. Taking a look at Newcastle's fixtures, obviously Nottingham Forest away from home isn't the next. It's on the best fixture to jump on, but after that it's West Ham, Palace, Liverpool, Brentford, and then in game week 16 and 17 it's back-to-back fixtures against the promoted sides, like I said with Isak. So I really like Hall. I really like the pick as a 4th or 5th defender. We've already discussed before how important no midweek matches is going to be as we approach the winter part of the season, and obviously Newcastle will benefit from that a lot. Good fixtures, great upside, and super cheap. There's no major red flags with Hull. The only one I can think of is that there's a chance when Botman is back that Dan Burn does come back into the starting lineup and take that left back spot from Hull. But I do think it's unlikely that Eddie Howe does that. I think he's just going to rotate Burn in the center back position because obviously Botman's coming back from a serious injury and he wouldn't want to throw him in straight away. But that's far away in the future. Botman is, I think it's a month or so away. And I think Hull can get you a lot of points in that time frame. So if you're looking for a defender on the cheap, I think Hull is the best option in his price point. I'd go with him. And that is a wrap on this episode of Meta Moves. If you took some insight out of this one, then subscribe to my channel. If you've got any team dilemmas, post them in the comment section and I'll respond to every single one. Peace.